Aloha and welcome back to the Kupuna Connections television series. My name is Cullen Hayashida and I'm the co-host for the program. Kupuna Connections is a locally produced TV series dedicated to seniors and their family caregivers. The information that we provide is practical and applicable anywhere you live in Hawaii. Each week we provide and invite guests to speak on a variety of topics having to do with seniors and long-term care. And we would like to ask you and invite you to tell us what you'd like to hear. Today we're very excited about the possibility of talking about financial exploitation and financial abuse with Scott Spallina, an attorney with the City Prosecuting Office. But before I get started, I'd like to ask my co-host to also introduce herself first.
I'm Tony Hathaway, and I'm a licensed social worker. I'm the education coordinator for the Kupuna Education Center at Kapi'olani Community College.
Scott, can you introduce yourself?
First of all, let me thank you guys for having me on your show. I appreciate the opportunity to raise awareness about elder abuse. I'm Scott Spallina, again, from the Prosecutor's Office, the Elder Abuse Justice Unit. I'm the supervisor in charge of that unit, where we deal primarily with crimes affecting anybody 60 years of age or older.
Okay. Well, we're dealing with issues having to do with elder abuse, and there are other topic words that are oftentimes used, but perhaps maybe we could start off specifically, what is elder abuse, and are there different kinds of abuse?
Well, yeah, there's different kinds of abuse. The most prevalent, that being financial exploitation when you're talking about elder abuse. Someone taking someone's property, belongings, money, assets. You have the physical abuse, you have the sexual abuse, you have the neglect of the elderly. Our unit handles all those, and unfortunately, we see all those crimes happening on Hawaii almost on a daily basis. A lot of people are of the belief that elder abuse is a mainland crime, where actually elder abuse is happening in Hawaii, and not a lot of people like to think about that. It's notoriously underreported, and so that's one of the things we're trying to do at the prosecutor's office, is raise awareness that elder abuse is happening in Hawaii.
Well, what is financial abuse, and is it a crime?
It is a crime. Basically, it's theft, and there's a lot of clever ways to describe it, but it's basically taking something that doesn't belong to you. Now, you can physically take it. We've had people approach seniors at ATM cash machines and rip the money off their hands, or we've had con artists come and sweet talk them, and that's still theft through deception, when you're trying to sell them a bill of goods and you don't deliver on those goods. So, but basically it comes down to stealing. That's the everyday term we use, is that he stole something. But they can be fancy in how they steal something, but it's still theft.
Okay. How does a situation like that come to the attention of your office, and what do you folks do when it does?
Okay. We work very closely. When we started this unit, we wanted to enter into a partnership with many agencies. We realized that the prosecutor's office is only one piece of the puzzle that would help fight this crime of elder abuse. So one of the first things we did was we opened up a dialogue with the police department. We opened up a dialogue with Adult Protective Services. We opened up a dialogue with Elder Affairs, with the university, with all the groups that deal with elders in our community. Because basically a lot of people don't know where to turn when they are victims of crime.
Right.
And so we're trying to funnel all those cases to the proper authorities. Oftentimes people will call me at the office and say, Scott, I think my mom is a victim of a crime. And so I say, okay, let's go through the evidence and see what actually is going on, and then I can redirect you to the proper authorities. Oftentimes it is the police, and that's why I'm on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, to go down to the police station and deal with the police, and that's primarily where we get most of our crimes from.
Mm-hmm. Can you give us a couple of examples of the kinds of things that people come to your office for?
Yeah, tell us a story.
Okay. Basically, a lot of people, well, my background is domestic violence, and when I started the elder abuse unit 2.5 years ago, it was eye-opening because I realized that people get up in the morning for the sole purpose of ripping somebody off. And they will do all sorts of clever things to do so.
Wow.
We had this one individual who every day he would go down to the airport, rent a car, usually a nice car, sometimes a red Corvette because he liked Corvettes. He'd drive around the nice neighborhoods looking for houses. He'd pull up, and this is in broad daylight. He'd pull up, knock on the door, and see if anybody responds. If someone does respond, he'd say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I got the wrong address." If no one does, he breaks into that home, and in less than 10 minutes, he's through that house, carrying anything portable, hopping back into his nice car, and driving to another neighborhood. That's how flagrant these people are when it comes to things, when it comes to these crimes. I mean, the first month that we were in existence, we broke up a home invasion ring. You had these 4 people working in tandem, breaking into homes. You'd have one person that was in a landscape crew that would case the joint, and then he'd tell his friends later on, okay, this is what the house is like. And then they'd break into those houses that his landscaping crew would work on. So it's not so much ingenious, but there's just a lot of people out there that spend a lot of time taking things that don't belong to them.
I suppose there's a lot of examples of maybe financial exploitation that might not be as flagrant, maybe less apparent.
And
cases like that.
And unfortunately, there's thousands of cases like that, and those are the cases that usually are not reported. I mean, let's take, for example, that your granddaughter you find is taking money from you. Maybe she sees your checkbook and she writes a check to herself for $20 or $100 like that. Are you going to turn in your granddaughter to the police? Chances are not. Well, what she's doing is a crime. She's stealing money from you, she's forging your signature on there, and she's cashing the check. We get a lot of crimes that are perpetrated by family members, and just like domestic violence, oftentimes family members don't report family members to the police.
Right.
And so therefore the crime continues and continues and continues until, let's say that your granddaughter who has a drug problem is stealing money from you, she needs more money, or she approaches you and you say no, then she might get physical, or she might steal your car, or she might. We had this one gentleman that, I use the term gentleman loosely, this one man who took his father's car. The father went on a trip to Vegas. He took the car, forged his signature on the ownership of title, and sold that car while his dad was in Vegas. And it's very, very sad when you can't trust your own children. But oftentimes when it comes to elder abuse, a lot of the perpetrators are family members.
Mm-hmm. Why are elders being targeted, do you think?
Well, I mean, as you progress in life, you get more things, more belongings. They say that elders have greater access to more assets. So you get your more established neighborhoods. Let's say your Diamond Head, Kaimaki, Kahala, Hawai'i Kai, the older homes, they have more good stuff in there. I mean, whereas a new family that's starting off in, let's say, a new neighborhood in Kapolei, they may not have all the Ming jewelry. They may not have all the fancy big screen TVs because they're just starting out. But when you get a retiree who spent their entire life working very, very hard for what they might have some good things. They might have the nice, good golf clubs. They may have that nice TV that they've saved a lot for and rewarded themselves for retiring. They might have all the jewelry that was passed on and they would hope to pass on to their own children. Criminals know this, and that's why they target these older homes.
You know, excuse me. Go ahead.
Go ahead. What are some of the warning signs of these types of crimes?
See, well, if you're looking at, let's say, potential abusers, some of the warning signs is, let's say that caregiver, whether it be a family member or somebody that you hire, has a drug problem, has a substance abuse problem. Chances are people that do have substance abuse problems, they're not the most productive members of society. Yet they don't give drugs away for free. So how are they going to get money for drugs? Chances are they're going to steal. And chances are they're going to steal from the most vulnerable people in their family or in their circle. We've had home caregivers go into homes and basically take jewelry from the clients, their clients like that. And then we find out later that they had a drug problem. So you look at maybe someone that does have a substance abuse problem, someone that's not employed, someone that has maybe the fancy Lexus car, but they're only earning like $20,000 a year. So you look at the disparity between what they have and what they can afford to have. I mean, how can that person that's earning minimum wage afford all the Hawaiian jewelry? I mean, you have to ask these questions. These are some warning signs thinking, that's interesting. That just doesn't seem right. So those would be some of the warning signs that you look for.
How about family members or friends of an elder? If they're going and visiting, maybe regularly, what would they notice?
Well, actually, you bring up a good point there about visiting regularly. As unfortunately in our society, we're a very busy society. And oftentimes the Kupuna are, I don't want to say put to the side, but they may not have a solid place in a family's busy life. They might be left at home while the adult children go and do their thing and have their grandchildren. So as the senior in our society is home alone by themselves, they naturally get lonely. And when someone's lonely, the more lonelier they get, perhaps the less common sense they have to some extent, because they want companionship. And the criminals know this. Criminals can easily get into an elder's life, especially an elder who is lonely, by befriending them, by approaching them at a supermarket and offering them to help them out. Let's say they go to Don Quixote. Every Tuesday they go to Don Quixote, that senior discount day. So they know there's going to be a lot of seniors at Don Quixote that day. They'll befriend that senior. The next week they'll say, oh, thank you for your help, and they'll befriend them again and again and again until they're like living with that senior, until they're found on the will of that senior, until they're found on the car registration of that senior. Because that senior was so desperate for companionship, so desperate for someone to talk to, that they went ahead and said, like, okay, I will put my common sense aside, where normally the common sense would say, don't put that stranger on your will, don't put that stranger on your house mortgage. But they do that because they're so desperate for attention. That's why if you do have a elder in your life, visit them, talk to them, take them out of the house. Because again, the more that they're home alone, the more they're going to be susceptible to undue influence.
Yeah, so one of the things I guess we oftentimes hear is that older adults, are, as you mentioned, lonely. There's sometimes boredom and depression. So all of these things, I think, makes it very easy for them to be vulnerable, I guess.
Exactly. We had this one very, very sad case where this one gentleman, basically, he drove around to these homes and he saw homes that needed repair and perhaps a lot of clutter in the house. And so he approached these women and said, you know what, chances are you have children, right? And they said, yes. And you have grandchildren, right? And they said, yes. Do they come to visit often? No, they don't. Why not? Because our house is very messy. Say, what if I can build you an extension onto your house? And then you can have your family over all the time. And so what he's doing is he's playing on their vulnerabilities, playing on their loneliness, and selling them a dream. Just like how you have lottery people saying, like, okay, yeah, you just $1 a day and you'll win the lottery and you can support your family for life,
yes,
whatever like that.
yes.
They're very insidious in that way, in that they'll sell them people on a dream, and then he walks away with thousands of dollars. And we're talking like tens of thousands of dollars.
Yes, yes, yes.
And basically that's the worst kind of criminal in my
Yes,
mind,
yes.
is when you don't physically overpower somebody, but you play on their emotions, because you're playing on their vulnerabilities. It's not their fault that they're alone. And yet these people capitalize on it, and that's very, very sad.
Now, I can tell you a personal story of my father. He's passed away since, but he used to receive all these sweepstakes,
Right.
and would sign those checks and send it off, $10 today and, maybe $20 the next time, hoping that he's going to win. And we couldn't stop him. And it was a lot of wasted money, obviously. But there's nothing in the state that can prevent something like that.
Well, I mean, unfortunately, a lot of these lotteries are not in the state. They're, like, let's say, from Canada. I mean, I had a relative do the exact same thing that your father did, in that every day he'd write out a check for $10 to the Canadian lottery, hoping that he would make it rich, and then hope that he would be able to help his family in the future. I mean, as a parent, as a grandparent, one of your dreams, I'm sure, is to be able to provide for your family, try to make their lives better than your life was. And that's all these people want to do oftentimes. It's all these victims want to do. They don't want a free ride. They don't want something easy. They want to provide for their family, to make it easier for them. And you have these criminals, these con men, these gypsy families, whatever you want to call them, trying to capitalize on that.
Let's talk about prevention. I mean, is this something that we can prevent somehow?
It is, and I mean, I know that Hillary Clinton at one time says it takes a village to raise a family. It takes a village to prevent this. As I indicated before, the prosecutor's office is working with different agencies to try different approaches on raising awareness and raising prevention. One thing you have to do, unfortunately, these days is you have to be more diligent. You have to be less trusting. You just can't assume that people have your best interest in mind. One of the first presentations I did was at this care home, and I had this sweet older lady raise her hand and say, Mr. Spallina, my neighbor's very friendly, and he helps me with groceries. And I like him a lot. He's very talkative, a nice, handsome young man. And yesterday he asked me for my social security number. Should I give it to him? And so she was very trusting. Unfortunately, she came to the program and she learned how dangerous that was. But you have a lot of people that are very trusting. So in order to prevent it, you have to ask more questions. You have to not be as trusting. You have to try to account for your money. When I say account for your money, I'm looking at maybe looking at your bills every month. Even if you have automatic payment of your credit card, look at your bills. See, like, I don't remember going to Club Roxa that night. Yet I see a $200 bar tab there. I don't remember going to Neiman Marcus and ordering all these things like that. So reconcile your bills. I know it's a pain in the butt to do, but you have to do that because chances are the longer you don't do that, the more your reputation in the credit community will be damaged. You have to ask questions. When someone says that they have a deal of a lifetime, don't believe them. Tell them to put it in writing. And take your time and talk to other people about it. Oftentimes these con men, what they'll do is they'll come into your house and they'll be very persuasive and say, you know what, today only I have a special deal for you. I just got through working on the Trump Tower. I'm about to start on another project like that. But today, just today, I can build you a sidewalk. And I can do, and usually these sidewalks cost like $10,000. I can do it for $1,000. Just today though. And so if you give me money right now, I can go down there and I can, I'll be right back and I'll have all the supplies and I'll build you this nice sidewalk so that way you don't have to walk all around your lawn. But just today though, because tomorrow I'm going to be building another Trump Tower, or tomorrow I'm going to be redoing the natatorium or whatever. So just today. So just here, and I'll spell my name for you. So that way you can just write out the check to cash and I'll be right back with the supplies. So these people are very persistent. They're very in your face. They want something immediately. Where if you said, okay, let's write out a contract and then I'll get back to you tomorrow. I want to talk to my daughter. Or I want to talk to my son. I want to talk to my friend. And I say, well, and then also, do you have some ID that I can see? And, oh, well, maybe I'll come back later on, and they never do. So lots of times, if it's too good to be true, it's too good to be true.
So is that one of the ways that you sort of try to convince some of these sort of kind-hearted seniors as to what they should do to tell the person, oh, I'd like to discuss this with a friend or a family member.
Yeah, we say don't rush
that
in.
decision.
Yeah, we say don't rush in. Bounce it off of other people. And if chances are it's not a deal of a lifetime. I mean, chances are another legitimate deal will come along. So don't rush in because that's what they're counting on, is to create a sense of urgency. I'm sure if you have internet and you look at your email, sometimes you get these spam emails that say, respond immediately or we're going to be closing your account.
Right.
And then they take you to this website that looks like Visa or MasterCard or American Express and say, we're going to close your account unless you open up and verify this is really you. And so you type in all your personal information and it's not really a legitimate website. So thieves and criminals, they like to create this sense of urgency so that way you put your mind on hold. One of the scams that we saw was these people getting phone calls from a younger male or a younger female, and as soon as a person picks up the phone, the person on the line says, oh, Grandma, is that you? Or Granddad, is that you? Yes. And then they say, oh, is this Johnny? Yeah, this is Johnny. I'm in Canada and I got pulled over and they're really mean to me and can you wire me some money? And that's a scam that's still going on today. And
really?
what they do is, again, they create this sense of urgency. And we've had, actually, it's funny, the last couple of presentations I gave, I've had people come up to me and say, I got one of those phone calls. So it's a scam that's still going on. And the reason it's still going on is that somebody is wiring that money. So it's a successful scam, and you'll see it being perpetrated over and over again.
Well, and you almost have to really take a moment and say, wait a minute, is this real?
Exactly.
I mean, even when we get those emails at work or at home and it says, oh, they're going to close your account, I mean, you want to do something right away.
Right.
And so you have to almost coach yourself to say, okay, wait a minute.
Because again, they are
Think
creating
about it.
that sense
Right.
of urgency.
Right.
That you have to do it because your grandson, I ran into him down the street, he needs gas money, so can you give me $20 and I'll make sure he gets the gas money. I mean, we had scams like that going on. So it's just crazy. It's just people wake up in the morning thinking of ways to take money from seniors in this town.
So if I think this is occurring, what should I do?
Right. Well, first of all, you can always call the police. Now, a lot of people say, oh, I don't want to bother the police. They're probably investigating a murder or something like that. The police, however, are very responsive. They take all complaints, all concerns very seriously. Now, like you say, you suspect something like this is going on. If you call 911, there'll be two questions they'll ask you. One is ambulance, fire, or police. So you say police. Then they'll say emergency or non-emergency. Then you can say non-emergency. So that way, at least the police will know what's going on in our community. If I say non-emergency, they can maybe take the report over the telephone, or they'll send an officer down there when they have time. So that way, they're not going to rush down there with a siren blaring or like that. Because a lot of people, they'll say, oh, I don't want to call the police. I don't want to be embarrassed or everything. So the police are not there to embarrass anybody. And the police will prioritize their cases. So you don't have to worry about saying, well, if I call the police, they'll not respond to a rapist. No, the police have common sense. I mean, if you suspect a crime's going on, they'll handle the rapist first and then come back to your telephone scam or whatever. So don't be afraid to call the police. If you have any questions, you can always give my office a call. We have a line dedicated to answering questions from the public, and that number is area code 808-768-6452.
Can you repeat that number?
I will repeat that. And the reason I'm looking at this is because I want to make sure I don't give my cell number. It's area code 808-768-6452. And again, that's the phone number to the Elder Abuse Justice Unit at the prosecutor's office.
And if I call that with a concern, what will happen?
Okay, what will happen is that most likely you'll be talking to me. And what I can go ahead and do is we'll play a game of 20 questions where I'll say, why do you suspect this? When did this happen? What evidence do you have? I get a lot of phone calls from people saying, oh, I think this crime is going on. And so I'll say, okay, well, let's talk about this. I had this one adult daughter thinking that the caregiver was trying to rip off her dad. And I asked her, why do you think that? And she's saying, like, well, because she wears all these tight dresses and she bends over in front of him all the time. And so I think that she's trying to seduce him. And so that was her only evidence that a crime was going on, was because the caregiver gave tight dresses. So I had to explain to her, saying that I don't know if that's a criminal conduct yet. And your dad might like the caregiver in tight dresses, so that might not be a crime. So we go through, we do a lot of problem solving. And it's, my job is also raising education to the public as to what is a crime and what do they need to prove a case. Oftentimes, I'll have a person saying, like, I think this is going on, I have these receipts, I have this information, I have these bank statements. And then I'll say, okay, wow, you have a lot of information. Let's go ahead and hook you up with the police department then. And then I can go ahead and call the police for them. We can work out a situation where they'll talk to an investigator that specializes in, let's say, a white-collar type of situation there. So I can sometimes help cut out the middleman, or sometimes I can tell people that right now that's not a crime that you can pursue in criminal court.
Now, is there sometimes a bit of hesitancy in that if you were to pursue a particular case and then remove that older person from the home, perhaps.
Right.
There's a possibility that after the fact, you still have to bring that person back to the house, and that there's this additional tension that could even create more problems on the road. Well, what do you do about things like that?
And that's a sad part also, is because you have people that have fear of the unknown. Okay, Let's say you have a senior living in their house and that senior needs constant care. However, but they can't afford, let's say, an outside agency. So they're having an adult child giving that care. Now, chances are that adult child is not trained to be a caregiver. So what we can go ahead and do is work with Adult Protective Services to maybe monitor the situation. So that way to maybe alleviate some of that stress that you were talking about, and have some supervision.
Okay. One last question. Let's say if we wanted to tell the viewers, we've covered a lot of information here. One less advice for our viewers. What would you suggest?
Well, just to be aware that elder abuse is happening in Hawaii. It's not a mainland crime. It's happening every day in Hawaii, and you just have to be more diligent. You can't be as trusting as you used to be growing up in the society where trust was, the handshake was the bond. You just have to be more aware of your surroundings, ask questions, don't rush in, and just be aware that your new best friend might be somebody trying to rip you off.
Okay. So, and then we have your number again. Would you like to give that number?
It's, again, there's the prosecutor's office, and the Elder Abuse Justice Unit number is 768-6452, and again, that's 768-6452, or you can email us at elderabuse, all one word, at honolulu.gov.
Okay. Well, that's about all the time that we have. Thank you very much, Scott Spolina,
Well, thank you for having me.
Deputy Prosecuting Attorney with the Elder Abuse Unit at City Prosecuting Office. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
And I'd like to thank all the viewers out there for spending the time to watch this program. We'd like you to join us again next week as we cover more topics having to do with seniors and long-term care issues in Hawaii. If you have some topics of interest and you'd like to share that with us, let us know as well. You can call us at 734-9469. That's my number, or 734-9108. So if you have anything else you'd like to share with us in the future, please do so. Again, thank you again for joining us. Aloha.
Aloha.